were talking about it in terms of when are we going to know what this team, I guess, really is, and just the intrigue and the storylines and how it's going to pan out. And in my opinion, a lot of that centers on Kirk Cousins. He may not be the most intriguing quarterback, but I do think out there among the media, nationally, probably not locally, and fans, that there is still a level of intrigue of wondering, okay, who is this guy? Or there's the other side of it. We know who he is. So let's go to the phones right now. David in Minneapolis. What are your expectations, or kind of where do you fall in that argument? Are you among the group that is still really intrigued and wants to find out more about Kirk Cousins, or do you already know who he is?
I kind of maybe in the middle, I guess. I'm intrigued with what he could do with a better offensive line, but my expectations for the overall season, this is like the first year in a long time where I'm not really excited about the team. I feel like it's just they're redoing last year and trying to do it again. I don't know. I'm just not really that excited about the team in general. I mean, maybe I'm excited about Kirk Cousins since we have Garrett Bradbury and maybe a better offensive line, but overall, I don't know. So I'll listen off there.
Thanks, David. No, I understand that feeling entirely.
I get it.
And this offseason, we went into it wondering, okay, are they really going to go all in and put everything around Kirk Cousins and give him more in terms of weapons than he's ever had before and yada, 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 right? Are they going to sign people? And yes, Golden Tate was one of my guys. Did not know he was using fertility drugs. So sorry when I had that take, was not aware of that. But, okay, are they going to get rid of Griffin? Are they going to get rid of Barr? Are they going to add all these offensive
cap
pieces?
Space that they can start making big moves.
Exactly. Are they going to add some big time? Everyone became a huge Roger Saffold fan all of a sudden, right? Remember this?
Loves guards, expensive ones at that.
But this is the thing, right? Is they didn't do any of that, and we will find out if that was the right approach or not. But in terms of the intrigue for this team and for Kirk Cousins in general, with having mostly the same group aside from another tight end who's the number 2 tight end, which we don't even know if Irv Smith can play yet. We won't find out until it's actually bullets flying in real regular season whether Irv Smith can play. But it's not even a first round weapon. It's a first round center. So in terms of the interest, in terms of the intrigue that happens in camp to try and ramp up people, get excited about all the players you basically know and have seen for the last few years, is kind of what we're dealing with right now. And then when we get to the regular season with Kirk Cousins, David's comment is, well, I'm interested to see if they block a little better for him. And you could say with Kubiak and everything else, we have these answers already, though, because he's already had these situations. He's already had in Washington a better offensive line. He's already had the Kubiak system before. He's already had good wide receivers, number 1 and 2 wide receivers. The only thing he hasn't had is a Delvin Cook, but Chris Thompson was a great receiving running back that he was able to throw to.
And he hasn't had a great defense except for last year.
And I'm not just really sure how much that necessarily matters to evaluating Kirk Cousins, right? I mean, yeah, last year he had the good defense, and they probably should have made the playoffs with a defense that good. And in Washington, it wasn't that good. But does that really help a quarterback all that much? I'm not sure if it does.
Well, it's just not a really
position. I don't know.
It's not. That's not exciting. Gary Kubiak, for all of the intrigue and mystery around him, I think that's exciting. It's not exciting for people
because you keep trying to figure out what Gary does here and how he got here, and no one will tell you.
I mean, it's just
Can I just stop and give you a ton of credit for asking the owner of the team how Gary got here and he wouldn't tell you?
No one's going to tell me. I'm just going to have to. I'm going to Denver.
Dogged reporting.
If I end up gone and missing for a few weeks, it's because I'm in Denver trying to figure out what the heck happened. Anyway.
Did they use the dark web? Why won't anyone say how Gary Kubiak got here? Whose idea was it? Sorry. Okay. Go back to Kirk.
You're right. But going back to Kirk and just, I guess where, as our caller David was saying, it's boring right now. And that's okay, because you're not going to be excited about, sure, offensive line. Everybody wanted to harp on the offensive line last year. It just became a really easy point to pile on. But nobody's going to be super excited in camp. Be like, oh, man, you don't know what you're watching for. What are you really watching for? Timing in the pocket in preseason is not something that that's not at the top of my list. Because there were times last year in the preseason, the offensive line looked okay, looked like it was a formidable unit, but even still, like, you just don't know. No one's going to be all that excited. I think Alexander Madison, probably of all of the draft picks, just because I do assume he will play quite a bit in the preseason.
You mean Mr. Mankato,
Mr.
Alexander Madison?
Your cheap pick for Mr. Mankato.
Tell that to his face. Call him a cheap pick to his face.
I'm going to refrain
I
from
get that
doing
sometimes.
that.
That's one of the funniest things. Like, what did you tell Kirk you hate him to his face? Like, I go to every press conference.
Yeah.
Stand right across from each other.
But
anyway.
But like when you look at the storyline of, did they do enough around him? Did they put enough around him? I think big picture wise, they addressed the needs that were there. But as we talk about the preseason, let's think about this wide receiver battle, because 3 through 5 or 3 through 6, that goes back to the preseason. That goes back to the offseason thinking, no, you didn't address that at all, because look at the bottom of the barrel that you're looking at for those positions, guys who can't stay healthy. And with Chad Beebe, yeah, he's, as Mike Zimmer said the other day, that's his biggest challenge. He's sure right now is the clear cut for the number 3, but can he stay healthy? And you have other guys who don't know how to run routes. Like, that's the storyline I think that we should be talking about, that you're really choosing for all these weapons and all to make everything better for Kirk. The coaching's going to be there. The scheme's going to be there. A better offensive line's going to be there. But do you really have enough weapons around him? And did you really address that the way that maybe you should have?
Well, you're speaking to the exact point of why he's not, in my mind, one of the more interesting quarterbacks to talk about, because things aren't really that different than anything we've ever seen with Kirk Cousins before. And I do say this, that I think they have a fantastic group of weapons overall, and I think we agree on this
absolutely.
overall.
They have one of the best rosters in the NFC, period.
Right, yeah. And ESPN ranked their
the Arsenals,
group of weapons 5th or 6th, so right up there in terms of the best.
Saints were below them at 7.
Right,
so kind of
he's got a great group around him, and maybe it wouldn't have been a whole lot different if he had a great group around him. But I think what he's always striving for is the 2016 season, where he was really, really good in terms of his QBR was high, his rating, he threw for his most yards, he had his highest yards per attempt. All those things were at their best, and his highest PFF grade that actually snuck him into the top 10 was in 2016. So if they had added a few more wide receivers, or 1 or 2 more wide receiving options, if they had added an intriguing scat back, if they had added a really good offensive lineman to the mix, if they had signed, here would have been intrigue, if they had signed a left tackle and moved Reef inside. Now that would have been something we could start talking about with Cousins being interesting, because he's got now a good left tackle and a couple more receivers. And how is Gary and Kevin gonna do, get the ball to everybody? It's one of those camp cliches. Oh, it's too bad there's one football, right? I can't get it to everybody on every play. Am I right? But it's not that different. And so that's why, if you were guessing like what Kirk Cousins' PFF grade is, how many wins he could possibly get, what is completion percentage, yards, touchdowns, all these things across the board, I bet you can get it. And I bet you would get that his sack number goes down a little bit. His pressures go down a little bit, because that's the scheme. And when you ask about the win total, it really will come down to how they play around him and how he performs in just a couple of little situations, right? I mean, last year, a good example is they're playing Chicago. They're in Soldier Field. So just everybody's beating the hell out of each other in this game. It's 14-6, and Kirk's got the ball, and there's 8 minutes left in the 4th quarter. It's like, all right, here it is. Here's a chance for you, buddy. Go drive down, and as you say, or as people say on Twitter, like, shush the haters, my friend. Go do it. And he throws a pick 6. And I think at that moment, you would go, okay, well, this is kind of what he's done for his career
in pressure situations.
But that
against good teams.
That's the interesting thing about Kirk. That's the most interesting thing I can come up with, is there are going to be a lot of spots when you want to play defensive football and run and everything else where it's a 6-point game that you can get the ball and go win or not. And whether he does or not, that is really impossible to predict. But the entire narrative around Kirk Cousins will be shaped on those moments, I think. Otherwise, stats-wise, where he ranks PFF, how he's going to throw the ball, how he's going to react to the system, I think we mostly already know those questions.
I'm just curious then, for anybody who has been on the Kirk Cousins train. You know who you are. The people who call us negative, say that we harp on the wrong things with Kirk. Why are you so excited then for this season? Offensive line, Garrett Bradbury, Irv Smith, the other draft picks. I mean, what is it that makes you intrigued about Kirk Cousins? Because I do know that there are a bunch of people out there, a big sect of this fan base who thinks, okay, he's got it. Like, they're excited to see what this quote unquote next level brings. But, are you excited about Kirk himself, or are you excited about everything else that's around him? Are you excited about Gary Kubiak, Kevin Stefanski? Are you excited about the draft picks? Are you excited about Josh Klein? I don't know. What is it? Because there is a very differing viewpoint on this offense, I think, from just based on like how people feel about the quarterback.